today I'll be showing you what's new in GIMP 2.99.10.
Before I get into that, don't forget to check out my GIMP 2.10 Masterclass from beginner to pro photo editing on Udemy. And you can also enroll in my WordPress for Beginners 2023 no-code WordPress Masterclass also on Udemy. And I'll include links to these courses as well as all the relevant links from this tutorial in the description of the video.
This release is another new development release version for GIMP. It is one of the development versions leading up to GIMP 3.0. So let's dive into what's found in this newest release. So the first new feature I want to cover for this development release version is the brand new splash screen. So this is something I really like. And it starts out with, at the very top, it has welcome to GIMP and then whatever version of GIMP you're using. So that's a good way to let people know what version of GIMP they have. I've had people ask me, how do I know what version I'm using? This will make it nice and easy. You also have an image here. This is probably going to just be whatever the splash screen image is for the most recent version of GIMP. That's what this is. In this case, it's matching what the splash screen is for 2.99.10. That's the screen that pops up when you first open GIMP. And it's going to give you a little bit of information here about what GIMP is and who contributes to GIMP, etc. And there's some external links here to various helpful GIMP websites and documentation. So for example, this takes you to the tutorial section on GIMP's main page, which they don't typically update that often. Anyway, the tutorials page, documentation, that's just all of the GIMP docs or GIMP manual pages that have all the information about what's in GIMP. You also have some links here to how to contribute to GIMP if you want to donate as well. There's a donating button there. And there's supposed to be two tabs down here. So this is supposed to be the first tab. There's also supposed to be a second tab titled Release Notes. And it's supposed to give you sort of the spark notes or the short notes as to what comes with this latest version of GIMP. And they said that it doesn't show up on Windows. Of course, I'm on Windows here, so it's not showing up due to some installer issue. So there's some bug with the Windows installer that knocks this out and doesn't allow it to display for whatever reason. But one cool thing about this, besides being able to quickly see exactly what is in the latest release version, is that this is going to be directly translatable. So it's going to be based on whatever language your GIMP is currently set to. So for example, mine's in English, so it would read in English. However, if you have it in Portuguese or something, it would read in Portuguese. And I guess the GIMP website is not readily translatable, so they have some issues where people who don't read English can't read the latest list of what is new in GIMP. So this will sort of improve accessibility of the new features found in GIMP. So you'll see here it says you can access this via the help menu. This only pops up the first time you open GIMP, so when I exit out of here, that is not supposed to pop up again. However, you can always go to Help, Welcome Dialog, and that'll bring it back up. So they've talked about adding additional features to this, including the ability to customize your UI directly from the first time you start this up. So for example, you'll be able to choose the theme colors, the icon sizes, etc. from the first time you open it up, so you won't have to always go through the preferences to set up your preferences you want to use. That should make it easier for new users as well to customize their GIMP. They've also talked about some other features, which actually one of them is one that I mentioned on Twitter, and that is to have the new document or open recent buttons on here. That's kind of standard in any software. You'll see it in premium software, you'll see it in other free software. Inkscape recently implemented not only a splash screen like this, but they also implemented those new document buttons as well as a whole template library. So GIMP is thinking about doing a simpler version of that or some kind of version of that, so let's hope that they do implement that sooner rather than later. So I'll exit out of the help screen there, the welcome screen. The next new feature I want to cover is that they have made some adjustments to layer sets, which are going to be over here in the layers panel. So a layer set, just to demonstrate, let's say I wanted to put a bunch of layers in a group, and yes, you can select multiple layers, as I mentioned in my What's New in GIMP 2.99.8 video. But let me hit Control, hopefully that worked, yep. So you can select multiple layers, and now this new icon that looks like the old transform lock icon is now the layer sets icon. And so here you can actually search for layers inside of your composition, or you can create a new layer set. And this was introduced in the last version, as I talked about in my last video. However, they've changed the language here as well as the icon. So they used to have different language here. I think it said named layer set or something like that. And then this icon it looks more like a download button. So I actually submitted a request inside of the GIMP bug reporting system on GitHub that they changed the language of this and changed the look, because I thought it was a bit misleading. It was hard for first-time users to be able to know what to do with this. So now they've changed the language there, and I think it's a lot better. And for example, let's say I wanted to create a new layer set based on these layers I just created, or the layers I just selected here. So let's say we name this clipped layers, hit the plus sign. So that created that. Let me click off it here. And now I have this logo layer selected. If I come back here to my layer sets and I click on the layer set I just created, that's going to select all those layers that I previously selected. You can see it says 5 items selected, and some of them are highlighted there. So that is a really cool feature. And I can always click that little X there to get rid of it. And let me just come over here. If I type logo inside the search field, it'll highlight whatever layers have the word logo in it. So let me just collapse that. The next new feature found in GIMP 2.99.10 is that they finally added icons to the newly located lock features. So you may remember that in previous versions of GIMP, you'd have to come up top here and you would see some small icons for the lock icons. Well, now they've been relocated over here, as I mentioned in my last video, what's new in 2.99.8. And you'll also notice that they now highlight this area, which was another thing I brought up with the GIMP team. I said that it was very hard to tell that you had something to click here, and that made it confusing for new users. So now you have this little highlight box that tells you there's something here to be clicked. So now when you click on this, you're going to get these 4 new icons. I think they look pretty nice. And let's say, for example, you want to lock the pixels on this layer. You click that button, and now that little lock icon displays. And if you lock multiple things here, so let's say you want to lock the position and size of this, so you click that as well. Now we have 2 locks on this layer, and now you get this new icon where you have multiple locks. It's just like double locks here. And something else we can do, let me just unlock that, is if I shift click on one of these icons, it's going to lock everything here, so I can collapse this. You'll see it locked all the layers inside of the composition with that particular lock icon. So shift click on that. Something else that we can do now is if I shift click on multiple layers here, let me just make sure I do this properly. So we've got 3 layers selected. Now if I click on the lock icon and I alt click on this lock icon, it's only going to use that same transparency lock there on the 3 selected layers that I have. So it's not going to do all of the layers in the composition. It's only going to do whatever I just had selected. So again, shift click will lock everything, as you can see there. And the only one that it doesn't change the status on is whatever layer is the active layer. So shift click, this remains the same. But on the other hand, as I just demonstrated, alt click only locks the layers that are selected. So something you may have noticed in this demonstration, if you are acutely aware of all of the features available in GIMP currently, is that you can actually add locks now to layer groups. So that includes the alpha lock, which I just did, and then the lock position and size, which I believe were not available to layer groups previously. So now that's been introduced. The next new feature in this latest development release version is you can now easily turn off brush dynamics. So this is one of the features that they announced they were working on Twitter. So now it's been officially implemented here inside of GIMP. So I have the tool options over here on the right. That's how they have this configured by default. But if I come over and, for example, grab the paintbrush tool, if I come over here to the tool options, you'll see there's now an enable dynamics checkbox. Right now it's checked, which means it'll display the brush dynamics and some additional options. But if I uncheck this box, you'll see it's going to hide those brush dynamics. It's also going to turn the brush dynamics off for the paintbrush tool. So what used to happen before, if I check this, is this would always be enabled by default. And you'd have to click on here and search through here until you found the dynamics off option, which was kind of like under here, I think, or above here. So now instead of having to do that, which, you know, if you're a new user, you would probably never guess to do that, to turn the dynamics off. Now, instead, all you have to do is uncheck this option and brush dynamics are turned off. The next feature I'll talk about is that GIMP has basically coded its compact sliders, which you can see here in the tool options, into the entire GIMP software. So instead of being in just some of the core features in GIMP, like the tool options here, now it's going to be available basically across all of GIMP, including in external plugins or third-party plugins. That's just going to help GIMP's usability make a bit more sense. It's going to make the user experience better because the sliders are going to look the same throughout various features in GIMP. So let me just show you one example. I'll go to File, Export here. And so I've got this poster. Let's say I want to export it as a JPEG. And hit Export. Well, now you're going to see the quality slider here for JPEG is going to have that compact slider look. Before, I don't know if you guys remember, but it had a thin line, and then it had like a little square box kind of looking thing that you would click and drag. Well, now it's going to have the same compact slider, and apart from just looking better, it also has more functionality, so I can middle click on here and manually change the value. I can use the plus or minus signs here, and some other options like using the scroll wheel, etc. So I'll just come over here and click cancel, and cancel again to exit out of there. GIMP has made a slight tweak to the screenshot plugin that's found in GIMP by default, and I think this tweak, even though it is pretty minor, it is important, and that is that it's allowed you to include the mouse pointer in your screenshots. So for example, if I go to File, Create, and I come over here to Screenshot, you're going to get the little screenshot dialog, and now you're going to see a second checkbox option here that says Include Mouse Pointer. So that's going to include your mouse pointer whenever you do a screen grab of like the GIMP window. And you're going to see there's also an option here that says Take a screenshot of the entire screen, and this one also allows you to include the mouse pointer. So a nice little update there. So in addition to the features that I've already mentioned in this video, GIMP has made its usual fixes to the back end of the program. So that of course is going to include bug fixes, translations, as well as updates to Babel and Gaggle, which help run sort of the back end of GIMP. But something else that came out of this version that I thought was actually pretty interesting is that they've made a lot of bug fixes to Mac OS. But the most interesting thing about this development is that apparently GIMP 3.0 was considering being shelved for Mac, because Mac just had too many incompatibility issues, too many bugs that needed to be fixed, and not enough people to fix those bugs. But apparently they took a deep dive into all those issues and they solved a lot of them. So even though a lot of them are back-end bug fixes, they are super vital for GIMP 3.0's existence on Mac.
All right, so that's it for this tutorial. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the bell icon to be notified each time I have a brand new tutorial. You can check out any of the links related to this video in the description. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.